Hello, everybody. For those of you out there who follow the Roundup cancer litigation, we've had a big development today. Hardeman versus Monsanto. The jury came back today unanimously with an $81 million verdict for the plaintiff, Mr. Hardeman, finding that Monsanto was negligent in failing to warn about the cancer risks of its herbicides. Jennifer Moore and Aimee Wagstaff were the lead attorneys for Mr. Hardeman, and they faced a very difficult challenge with this trial. It was different than the one that was won last summer by Lee Johnson. This trial was bifurcated. The evidence was limited and divided up for the jurors. They faced a number of challenges, but they have agreed to come and talk with us here tonight for just a few minutes. They're busy. I think they have to go celebrate. So Aimee and Jennifer, say hello to everybody.
Hello.
Hi, thanks so much for having us.
Great. All right. So tell us, one of you, Aimee, maybe start out. So what do you think was the most significant evidence? You had reams of cancer scientific evidence that you shared with the jurors. You also had a lot of evidence about Monsanto's conduct over the years and the work that they did to suppress some of the risk information. What do you think really resonated with the jurors?
Yeah, I think that in this trial, you mentioned that this trial is different than the Lee Johnson trial. And the way that it is different is that in this case, in the first phase of this case, we looked just at the science and we separated the science from all of the bad conduct of Monsanto. And I think what the jury saw was that over 40 years, Monsanto has failed to test the product when there was absolute signal markers starting back in 1983 with their original application to the EPA for glyphosate and for Roundup. They have continued to refuse, not just negligently, but refuse to test the product. And I think back in 1983, it was shown that it was genotoxic and it was shown that it can cause tumors. And they were actually told in 1985 that there was a dose response. So I think that the jury picked up on that. The jury was very thoughtful. They took their role very seriously. We waited an entire week for our first verdict, and it just proves to show how thoughtful they were. Monsanto's attorneys even thanked them in closing for being so thoughtful and taking their job so seriously. Jennifer, you anything to add?
I would just add that, Carey, the jury was presented with overwhelming evidence from the scientific community going back decades, showing the link between Roundup and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And they agreed unanimously that scientific evidence should have told Monsanto to either take the product off the market or put a warning on it.
Right. But now Bayer is saying the opposite, pretty much. Bayer said in a statement issued this afternoon that the juries, because the jury members took so long to come in with a verdict on the causation issue, it took them, several days of deliberation to decide just the causation question. Did the science show that the herbicides were a substantial factor in causing the plaintiff's cancer? They're saying that's a sign that the jury itself was divided and that the science is somewhat shaky. What do you say about that?
I say that this is the second unanimous jury that has found that exposure to Roundup causes cancer. If the jury had come back in one day, I'm sure Bayer would say they didn't take it seriously enough. Now that they took them a full week, it shows that they actually looked through 40 years of science. I mean, we presented this story to them of 40 years of deception and 40 years of scientific dishonesty. And the jury took it seriously. The science does not support that it's safe, and Bayer needs to quit saying that.
What do you think about the other evidence, or how much did the other evidence, the evidence of Monsanto's conduct, how much did that come into play, do you think? And do you think that was a big part of the reason that the jury awarded $75 million in punitive damages?
Well, in phase one, the evidence of Monsanto's egregious conduct for the last 40 years did not come into evidence. The focus on phase two was Monsanto's conduct. And one of the reasons that you had punitive damages in a case like this is to punish a company when it sets on a path of lying to the American public, when it sets on a path of manipulating the science, actually ghostwriting scientific studies. In other words, writing the scientific study and then putting a scientist's name on it and acting like they didn't write it and not telling the public that they're the ones behind it.
Right.
And so the purpose of punitive damage is to punish and to deter future conduct. Because what we talked about yesterday with the jury in closing argument is that so far, nothing has changed Monsanto's behavior over the last 40 years. None of the scientific articles showing a link. IARC coming out saying that it's a probable carcinogen. They continue to sell this product. They continue to deny that it's dangerous. And even after a second jury verdict, they're still saying that. I mean, at some point, this company needs to come clean and own up to the fact that this product is dangerous and it needs to have a warning of cancer on it.
Now, both of you are experienced trial attorneys. Both of you represent plaintiffs in a number of product liability cases. How just what you've seen of Monsanto's conduct and in their handling of their product liability and the background and safety information, how does that compare to what you've seen in other cases from other corporations? Do all corporations just engage in this sort of behavior to promote their products?
No, actually, this was pretty egregious. The fact that they ghost wrote and manipulated and basically created fraud and deception into the fabric of the science that they say supports the product is pretty amazing. And at trial, the entire trial, even in phase 2, after the jury had said that exposure to Roundup caused Mr. Hardeman's cancer, the entire trial, Monsanto's defense was no evidence. No evidence, no evidence. They didn't even say weak evidence. They didn't say a little evidence, no evidence across the board.
And that's what they say now. And what we showed the jury in phase 2 is that their internal documents was actually what is actually written on paper shows the opposite. Right. It shows they know. They knew it then. There's one email and it says, we cannot say Roundup is not a carcinogen because we have not done the necessary testing. And then out the other side of their mouth, they say to the public, there's no problem. It doesn't pose a danger. But internally, they're recognizing it. Yeah. But externally,
Aimee, come back. I'm sorry for interrupting you, Jennifer. Right. Mr. Hardeman, was he in the courtroom with you and how has he taken the news?
Well, he's ecstatic. I mean, he feels that, the jury listened attentively. They considered all the evidence. And, what he's gone through is horrific. No one should have to go through this. And, it's a little bit of peace to him that the jury recognized what has happened and has held Monsanto accountable.
Right. So a couple more questions. I know you guys are dying to just go celebrate. It's been a month-long ordeal for you, right? This was a very hard trial. I know, very stressful for you all. So what does this mean for the rest of the plaintiffs out there? There are some 11,000 more plaintiffs that have filed suit that are waiting for their day in court, day that may never come. Does this bring them closer perhaps to a global settlement? Does this make it more likely that Bayer will come to the table to settle? Or do you think we're just going to have to see many, many, many more trials like this before we get a resolution?
Well, it was a month-long trial and it was very tiring, but Jennifer and I are ready to go again. We are in this and we will continue to fight this company and we will continue to fight for our plaintiffs as long as it takes. This was a wonderful victory as a lawyer, both professionally and personally, because the Hardemans are such great people. So we will continue and we are just getting started. We are not tired and we are ready to go.
We're not going anywhere.
That being said, I think it's time that Bayer starts looking in the mirror and making decisions. They got their bifurcation they wanted. They got the evidence limited just like they wanted it. They got everything they wanted in this trial and they were very confident they were going to win and they didn't. And because of that, I think that it's time that people start looking at and making hard decisions over there. They're not easy decisions they have to make, but it's time that they start being made. And so what impact does this have on future plaintiffs? Time will tell. We don't know. But I'll tell you that it's a positive step for plaintiffs out there.
And what do you think this means for the larger community, the environment, human health around the world? This is the most widely used herbicide in the world. This is, sprayed on our food. It's in our water. It's in our air. A lot of people are exposed because they use it. A lot of people are exposed involuntarily, just through the environment. Do you think that this will have an impact on regulators and the way that consumers and others view this product?
We hope that regulators will actually focus on this now and revisit their decisions, because one of the reasons that the Hardemans wanted to pursue this case, even after everything that he has been through, was to expose the truth of the dangers of Roundup, not only to the American public, but all over the world. Because you're right, this product is sold everywhere. Anyone can go into their local hardware store. A child can go into the local hardware store and buy Roundup, and without any information that it causes cancer. And so we ask that Monsanto and Bayer, instead of coming out and saying there's no evidence when the evidence is overwhelming and 2 juries have told them so as well, we ask that they put a warning on their product and they finally admit and they finally own up and be a responsible company.
Aimee, do you have any final words for Judge Chabria?
I thank Judge Chabria for his service, and I thank Judge Chabria for presiding over such a wonderful case, and we're excited with the outcome. Mr. Hardeman is here, and he will give a statement to your listeners if you want. He's not taking any questions, but he will give you a statement.
That'd be wonderful.
Thanks, Carey.
Thank you, guys. Have a good celebration.
So Ed, just look right into here and just sort of say what you said at your press conference.
Hello, Ed. Thanks for doing this.
You're welcome. Thank you.
He's a little overwhelmed.
Yeah, a lot overwhelmed. I first of all, I want to thank the incredible jury. I mean, they stayed with this case. They're dedicated. The information is very complex. I mean, what can I say? I appreciate the job that they did, really. And of course, my 2 wonderful attorneys, Aimee Wagstaff and Jennifer Moore, the Moore Law Group, and David Bull and Catherine Forgy, and the legal staff supported me. I mean, I couldn't have done this without them. They propped me up when I was just, falling apart. I'm really, really indebted to them. I thank them very much.
Yeah. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Carey.
All right. Thank you, guys. All right.
Have a good night. Bye.
Good night. All right, guys. Well, you heard it there from plaintiff Mr. Hardeman. He was awarded $81 million. Monsanto was ordered to pay him because of their negligent handling, their failure to warn of the cancer risks of Roundup. They're all off to celebrate now. Bayer has promised that it's going to appeal. It has no intention, I'm sure, of paying the money. But we've got another trial starting tomorrow in Oakland, in Alameda County Superior Court, husband and wife team. Both of them have non-Hodgkin lymphoma. Both of them were exposed to Roundup for many years, and they are suing Monsanto, and that trial begins tomorrow. So stay tuned. I'll be posting updates for that trial on US Right to Know's website, usrtk.org. And writing a daily blog, trial tracker, and doing more interviews like this, hopefully. So hope you all have a good night, and thank you so much. All right, good night.